Trump not only openly confirmed that he had invited Vladimir Putin to join a so-called peace council, but also casually threatened economic sanctions against France simply because President Emmanuel Macron refused to participate in the initiative.
Do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the support of peace?
Oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costco, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
Did you invite President Putin to join the...
Yes, he's one of the people. These are world leaders, and the answer is yes.
By favoring an invitation to Russia's leader while attacking and pressuring European allies, Trump triggered multiple crises at once. A crisis with Europe, a crisis within NATO, and a crisis of the rule of law inside the US itself. What is striking is that Trump has offered no legal, diplomatic, or security roadmap whatsoever for the Greenland plan. Instead, he has chosen the tool he knows best, tariff threats. The more serious problem is that these tariff threats now face the risk of being unconstitutional within the US legal system. The US Court of International Trade has previously ruled that a president does not have the authority to unilaterally impose large-scale tariffs without congressional approval. Trump has ignored that warning. He continues to treat tariffs as a personal instrument, placing the Supreme Court in a position where it could be forced to choose between defending the Constitution or legitimizing a dangerous precedent of executive overreach. This downward slide became even more evident when Trump turned his attacks toward Norway and the Nobel Peace Prize. His public accusations that Norway controls the Nobel Prize, combined with his visible bitterness over not receiving it, have led many to seriously question the personal motives behind his foreign policy decisions. When a US president allows a personal obsession with honor and recognition to seep into national decision-making, the line between public interest and personal ego is nearly erased. Inside the US, criticism spread quickly. Many lawmakers, especially military veterans, warned that threats of confrontation with NATO allies are not a political game. They stressed that if conflict were to break out, those who would pay the price would be soldiers and their families, not politicians making impulsive decisions. Trump's apparent willingness to put other people's lives on the table to serve personal political goals has been widely condemned as the height of irresponsibility. What is particularly worrying is that instead of exercising restraint, parts of the pro-Trump media have tried to normalize these statements. Rather than questioning their legality and morality, they have shifted the debate to how beneficial Greenland might be for the US, even proposing payments to Greenland's population to buy consent. This approach is not only unrealistic, but also deeply rooted in colonial thinking, treating sovereignty and the will of a people as commodities to be bought and sold. This raises a larger concern: the erosion of checks and balances in US politics. When a president can unilaterally threaten tariffs, deny the sovereignty of allies, and reshape foreign policy without congressional consent, the role of other institutions is significantly diminished. In this context, Greenland becomes a test of whether those mechanisms still function. For NATO, the consequences are not merely symbolic. The alliance is built on the trust that the US, as its central pillar, will not use its power to coerce other members. When Trump breaks that principle, trust is damaged. Some European countries have begun to question the reliability of security commitments from Washington, especially in times of crisis. This doubt does not arise in a vacuum. It comes at a moment when Europe is facing multiple security and economic challenges simultaneously. Instead of strengthening the alliance, Trump has forced allies to divert resources to deal with pressure coming from the US itself. This is a strategic paradox. Actions framed as making America stronger are instead weakening the very alliance system that underpins US global power. Within the US, debate over Trump's leadership capacity continues to intensify. Some lawmakers have openly expressed concern that foreign policy decisions are being driven by personal emotions and short-term political objectives. References to the 25th Amendment, while not yet mainstream, reflect how serious these concerns have become within political circles. Former national security officials warned that turning allies into potential adversaries is a grave strategic mistake. They emphasize that U.S. strength comes not only from its military or economy, but from its extensive network of alliances. When that network is weakened, the U.S. must shoulder greater costs, both financial and military. In that broader picture, Greenland has increasingly become a symbol of a leadership style based on confrontation rather than cooperation. It reveals how Trump views the world as a chessboard where countries are judged by their level of submission, where rules can be bent if they stand in the way of objectives, and where personal relationships between leaders are placed above institutions. Notably, international reaction has not been limited to Europe. Many other countries are closely watching how the US handles the Greenland issue, because it could set a precedent for how great powers behave in the future. If a US president can openly deny the sovereignty of an ally without consequences, the message sent to the world is deeply damaging to the international order. The reaction from Europe has been one of outrage and deep concern. For NATO countries, this is a clear signal that the US under Trump is willing to turn its back on its own allies. Threatening economic sanctions against allies simply because they refuse to accept territorial demands violates a core principle of the transatlantic alliance. Disputes must be resolved through diplomacy, not coercion. Trump has tried to justify himself by repeatedly claiming that he has done more for NATO than any president before him. But that assertion rings hollow when set against the reality that he is actively undermining trust within NATO. Pressuring allies to increase defense spending does not give Trump the right to deny their sovereignty or threaten their economies. In the long run, the price the US may pay could far exceed any strategic benefit Greenland might offer. Lost credibility cannot be restored overnight. Trust from allies, once broken, is extremely difficult to rebuild. And in an increasingly competitive world, even partial isolation is enough to weaken US standing. Donald Trump may see Greenland as a big deal, a bold move to secure his place in history. But from a political and strategic perspective, it reflects a short-term, high-risk approach driven heavily by personal ego, rather than reinforcing US leadership. Trump is pushing America into unnecessary confrontation with the very partners who helped build the international order over decades. When the dust from the Greenland controversy settles, the remaining question will not be who won the war of words, but what the US has lost credibility, lost trust, and possibly the moral standing it once used to lead the world. Greenland, in the end, is not just an Arctic island. It is a mirror reflecting how Donald Trump uses and abuses presidential power.